morning, everyone. Good morning to all of you who are with us over the internet. It's always good to be here back to our last lecture of the year. Today we're going to have a lecture talking about the perfect Christian, which is a perfect time for us to be talking about now. It's time that we talk about Christmas and so many other religions. Celebrations around this time. But as always, before we have our lecture, we're going to have our initial reading and our initial prayer. So I'm going to be reading from the book Happy Life by Oliveira by the Spirit of Joana de Angelis. Keep your courage in the struggle, whatever the situation. There are easier roads to be traveled, but all demand effort. Some think that since they are working for the good of their fellow men, they will not confront difficulties or obstacles. This is not at all true. Human beings are the same everywhere. Saint Vincent de Paul, who was so devoted to the poor, claimed that they were very demanding and ungrateful. So keep your courage up always. So let us all now connect our thoughts and our hearts with God, our Creator, with the Jesus, our guide and mentor, all the benefactors of this house, being open to the lessons that are going to be brought to us today by our brother Rafael. And may these lessons enlighten our spirit so we can become, little by little, better humans, and that the laws of fraternity and charity may be imprinted in our hearts. And so be it. So, Rafael,
thank you. Good morning, everybody watching on the internet. Good morning, everybody here.
Good morning.
So, as Teresa was saying, that this is the last lecture of the year, and it's a very special moment for us all, Spiritists and Christians, because this is when we celebrate, this time of the year is when we celebrate the coming of Jesus and his teachings and basically his love for us. And some people get bogged down with, on the date, December 25th. Who cares? If it's December 25th or January the 6th, it doesn't matter. All we do is, or what we should do is just to express our gratitude for this spirit that came to us out of love completely on his own accord, just to try to guide us to a path of happiness. So that's all. So it doesn't matter what date we do it. All it matters is for us to express our gratitude. And the title of our lecture today is The Perfect Christian. But throughout the lecture, I'm going to challenge this name, to challenge this word Christian. So first, what does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean when we say that we are Christians? You guys remember where this word was originated? Yeah, so this was when Paul of Tarsus was doing his travels. He came across a doctor. It was a very good person and his friend. They had met before, and they recognized each other on a boat. Yeah, on a boat. And then Lucas had met Paul when he was a rabbi. And then Paul told him, yeah, now I'm working with the way, so I kind of study Jesus' teachings and I spread his word. And he invited Lucas, the doctor was Lucas, that wrote the gospel. He invited Lucas to come with him, so come with me. And Lucas said, I'm a doctor, I have a profession, this and that. Okay, but there are so many doctors in the world, so what, come with me and we're going to heal souls instead of healing bodies. And I said, yeah, all right, I'll go with you. Of course, it wasn't that simple, but he went with Paul. And after a while, he thought, hey, you guys need a name just to differentiate from other meetings, so that when you say that the meetings from this group, people will know that that's what we're going to be talking about. We're talking about Jesus' teachings. So since you are following Christ, you should be called Christians. And from that moment on, we are called Christians. But then we think, Jesus, he couldn't care less if a group of people would study under his name and call themselves Christians. So he didn't come to create a specific group that would, a selected group that would be saved. He came. So let's try to understand a little bit, or with all our ignorance, try to understand a little bit of who is this spirit that we identify by the name of Jesus. So he's the governor of our planet. He was here from the beginning of the formation of this planet, and he's responsible for each soul that is incarnated or discarnated in this planet. So it's not just in the Middle East that he chose that area because it was the area that he knew it would grow roots. He knew that his teachings would grow roots, and it would spread throughout the world. So he didn't want to create just a small group that would always remain closed under the name of Christians. He wanted to save everybody. And that is true for most of the missionaries, that they don't want to come and create a specific group, a different religion. They want to come to talk about the truth, to talk about love, to talk about moral evolution, charity, how to be a good person. We are the ones who later on put a label on it and start calling ourselves under that label. So that's the first thing that we have to understand, that the importance is not in the label, it's in the transformation of the human being. It's in the trying to be a good person. That doesn't mean that we should not have labels. So we are here, we are spiritists, and this is a spiritist center. Then we put this, so we have a sign in front of the door, so that people who come here, they will understand that we're going to be talking about spiritism. And what is the difference? If we have different paths that we can take. We have Christianism, Spiritism, Islamism, Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism. All of them are about helping us to be better, to be a good person. And they're all equally important. Why is it that we have so many? If we study the codification and the books from André Luiz, Emmanuel, Manuel Flamengo de Miranda, we'll see that there's a plan for all this. Because people are different. We have different levels of intellect and moral development. So some people, they come here and sit and they watch a lecture, and this is not for me. I don't connect to that. And then they go to a church or a temple, and they say, oh yeah, I connect to that. I connect to that. That's okay. So then that's why we have labels. It's for us to see where do we fit better. But we have to be mindful of the trap of from our own pride, to think that, okay, I belong to that group, that I'm better than everybody else. No, that's not the case. The labels and the groups, they are because we have different personalities, different levels of intellect. Sometimes reading the Bible, it makes us understand better the teachings of Jesus than reading the Gospel according to Spiritism. So, and that's okay. in the end, in the end, we're all going to reach the same state. We are going to outgrow all these words. So we are going to see the essence behind the words that we read. We are going to outgrow all that, and we're going to meet in the other side, and we're all going to work together. We see an example of that in the book Planetary Transition from Rafael that talks about not the beginning of the transition of this planet. Well, a small background. Our planet of expiation and proofs and atonements is changing to a regeneration planet. So we are in transition right now, and that transition started somewhere in the 19th century. And we reach a point where we are accelerating, and we see the details of, well, you're alive now, you see it. So you can see the difference in the world and the changes that are happening. But we can see the details from very clearly described in the series of books from Rafael Miranda, starting in 2004 with the tsunami. You guys remember the tsunami in Indonesia? So then these books, Planetary Transition, Dawn of a New Era. I forgot the name of the third one. Huh?
Me too.
Yeah. But they all talk about these moments of that we are going through, the pandemic inclusive. So then there is a situation where a group of spirits, they join in the spirit world to go to Indonesia to help some of the 150,000 discarnated that happened in the tsunami, and they all went together. And in this group, they had a Muslim, they have a spiritist, they have a priest, they have a doctor, and they were all working together. And when they get there, it's very interesting, the scenario that is described, because everything was destroyed. And you see bodies everywhere. And if you are not spiritual, let me see, what is the best term? If you are a person that you only think about the material life, when you discarnate, in such a short time, like a tragic death, it's not that easy to disconnect from the body. Even if the body is dead, it takes some time for you to disconnect your pure spirit from the body. So the tsunami was something that had happened. Sad that it happened, but as Manuel Flamengo explains, that region of the world was so corrupted with sexual exploration that most people who had affinity with that type of mindset flew there for vacation. They felt attracted to that place, and they flew there at the exact moment of the tsunami hit, because it was something that as a group they had to go through together. And so then they got to that scenario, and there were several discarnates trying to kind of dragging their bodies because they wanted to be free. They were kind of disoriented with the violence of what happened, the violence of that, and they didn't know what was happening, but they knew that they were stuck on that body, rotting body. So it's not a pretty scenario, and there were they described wolf packs and coyotes that were preying on the discarnate. But these are not wolf packs in the material world. They are in the spiritual world. What does that mean? It makes no sense. There are spirits in this planet that their personality is so animalistic their actions are more like an animal than a human being. They never really uh, became humane. And I'm not talking about an animal that is actually acting as a person. It's a person that delivers themselves completely to their instincts and passions so that they live as an animal. They only react. We see that. So then when they discarnate, they feel the perispirit is very malleable. It's different than our physical body that has a lot of stored energy. It takes a long time for us to change our body with our mind. We can. So if you receive a bad news, you can just you vomit. Something happened with your stomach, and it's just news, nothing physical. So you can change your body with your mind. But in the spiritual world, it's much faster because you don't have that much energy and weight and mass. So they change their shape, their spiritual shape. This is studied in several books of the doctrine. It's called zoanthropy. And they take the shapes of wolves because that's how they behave. And it suits them well because then they scare the discarnates because of the whole werewolf thing. It's kind of, it seems fantasy, but we need to understand that if you don't have a massive body, the perispirit, it responds automatically to your thought. If you think that you don't have an arm, you discarnate, there's no reason for you not to have an arm, but you're going to appear without an arm. Because that's your thought. That's how you think. That's why animals, they need help in the discarnation process. Because they don't know they are animals. They don't know that they have 4 legs and a tongue and ears. So then when they go to the other side, they cannot form the perispirit. Because you have to see yourself in that shape to form that shape on the other one. Okay, so that's the scenario, that's the background. And then this team goes there, and in order to, of course, these spirits, these discarnate spirits, in whatever shape they are, they see the workers of Jesus, even if they are Muslims, and they are all working under Jesus. And so they are immediately attacked. And so there are different situations, different moments, and in one of the moments, the Muslim, he starts saying a prayer from the Quran. And this light appears, and that the wolves or the other spirits, they can't reach, they can't come close. They move away because they don't wanna be in the light. The light bothers them. So who cares that they were not under the same label, that they were not Christians? They were, in the sense that they were working, they were doing charity, they were there out of love to help all those discarnates. And they do a lot of work. They do it, it's very heartening. It's very nice to read and see how much they help those that are connected to their bodies, and a mother that could not find the child, and then they find the child and they reunite both in the spiritual world. So it's very good. It's awesome. So that's the main thing. They were all working together. They were not there sitting down and discussing, yeah, but I don't believe in reincarnation. A good person that says that you talk about spiritism, and that person says, yeah, but I don't think reincarnation doesn't make much sense to me. But it's a good person. How long is it going to take for that person in the spiritual world to understand that there is reincarnation? It's like that. Oh, yeah, okay, now I understand. If you go the opposite and you see a bad person that reads all books from Kardec, but he has pride and selfishness, is completely blinded by pride and greed, how long is it going to take for that person to become a good person in the spiritual world? It's not that easy. It's going to take several incarnations. So you see, after, it doesn't matter the path that you take. After a while, we all understand the essence of all this, the essence of being a good Christian, a good person, which is to follow the law of justice, charity, and love. It's one of the laws that it is the most important, actually, that is described in the Spirit's book. So if you follow that, it doesn't matter what label you are under. We are all going to meet in that particular point. And most of the problem between different religions is that we take words too literally. How many times we see the spirits telling Kardec, you're taking words too literally. And I believe that that was left in the Spirit's book. It was not edited out. So it's a lesson for us too. And Kardec knew that. So that's why it's not Kardec's book, it's the Spirit's book. He was there just the codificator, the codifier. So that's why he made so many questions, to make sure that he got the point. And it was not limited to his own opinion and limited vision. So there's one example that it happens in Spiritism, that when we take words too literally and we get the wrong idea. For example, question 601. Do animals follow a law of progress like humans? And the answer from the spirits, yes. However, they are always lower than humans and subjected to them. They are their intelligent servants. So animals are our servants. And they are always lower than humans. Some brothers and sisters read this and they think, okay, animals will never evolve. They will always be animals. They will never become humans. This is what he's saying. It's if we take the limits of this, the range of these words, and we start extrapolating, but it's still enclosed in these words, we forget everything else. So this is the question 601. We forget everything else, the other 600 questions. And Kardec, he knows that this is a risk. So he keep making questions so that he's sure of what is the message. So he goes like that for until question 607. And then the Spirit finally tells him, haven't we stated that everything in nature is linked together and tends toward unity? Because the questions were going through a point where saying that the animals will never evolve. And then the Spirit continues, to believe that God could have created intelligent beings without a future will be to blaspheme God's goodness. So it's saying, you can talk the same way about children and adults. If you say, can children drive cars in the same way as adults? No, children, they don't have the same perception of the world as adults. So a child can never drive a car. And then you go to a child and say, you're never going to drive a car. No. That's, again, we put a box in our heads. Try to see the essence. That's why these books are so thick. It's not, and we have 5. So you don't stop there. You try to, you read all this and you have to apply in your life. You have to try to apply. And then you start every year, you read again and read again and read again, and then you understand a little bit more, and then you absorb here, absorb there, and then you start connecting things. And then you start kind of completing the puzzle inside of you. And then you start seeing further. Then you really start seeing what is the path. And then you see another person walk beside you, and that person has a different belief. And you see this. It doesn't matter. We are all following the same path. It doesn't matter if we are under different labels. And all this study that we do, the words that we read, trying to apply this in our life, it's kind of an irony, but it's all we do all that to unravel or to connect to a knowledge that is already inside of us. It's already in us. The way I see it, we are creations of God, and we are in God, and God is in us. Just like ice in water. The ice is in the water, and the water is in the ice. It's a concentration that at a different temperature, it forms that block of ice, but the water is still in there. So we are creations or concentrations of a field that we call God, this supreme intelligence that we could call this a field of love or a cosmic fluid, and we are part of God, and God is part of us. I don't know if I'm getting to making this too complicated. I'm trying to convey what I'm feeling right now. But it's if I take my cell phone, so if I tell you we are embedded, so we are swimming now in an electromagnetic field, and then you say, but I don't see anything. Okay, take your phone. You're going to be able to connect to the internet immediately because you are there. You are immersed in there. So when we connect to our conscience, it's like we are emanating, we are concentrating this love that is around, it's already around us and inside of us, and we amplify it. We connect to this love, which we call God, and then we amplify that. When we connect to our conscience, that's what we are doing. And that's why the Spirit tells us so many times, everything we need to know is already inside of us. But it's kind of locked because we are not honest to ourselves. For example, sometimes we do something that we clearly know that is wrong. We all know it's wrong. But we like doing what is wrong. And then we tell ourselves, oh yeah, but I'm doing that because that person did something first. And then we tell ourselves, and that we kind of, nobody's talking to us, we are talking to ourselves. And then we recreate these layers of protection of our own ego against our own conscience. We kind of make such a mess. It's so complicated. It should be simple. But we have this conscience, this part of God that is trying to come out and telling us that that's wrong. But we want to do that wrong thing because it's going to make us like, oh, revenge. It's going to make us feel the illusion of happiness. And then we create these layers where then we have to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to identify the layers and remove them so that we can go on with our lives. But it's all already inside of us, in our conscience. And we see that, an example of that, in the book 2,000 years ago, when the senator Publius Lentulus, he's stationed in Galilee by the time that Jesus was there. And he has his wife become a Christian. At the time it was before Lucas, so there was no word Christian. But she starts studying or listening to the Nazareth prophet, and they have a child that is very sick. And then this senator is very proud, very, very proud. And he's a senator for the biggest empire in the world, the center of the world. At that time, Rome and the rest of the world is like night and day. It's completely different. They had engineering, they had the geometry, they had all that, and the rest of the world was just living in huts. So they had that pride of being part of Rome, that using purple and whatever. But the disease of the daughter, and that they couldn't do anything, that the daughter had the leprosy, and nothing that they did would make her feel better. And then he wandered, and he ended up close to the Tiberiades, the Galilean Sea, where Jesus used to preach. It was night, and he's there, and then he feels someone approaching. He feels someone approaching, and when he turns, he knew immediately it was Jesus. He had never seen Jesus before, but he knew immediately because he felt it. And immediately he couldn't talk anymore. He couldn't talk, and he kneeled. He went to his knees. And then Jesus sees completely everything that is going on with him, and only Jesus talks. The senator cannot talk. And then in the end, Jesus says some extraordinary things on the future. And so this senator, it's Emmanuel. So this is an incarnation of Emmanuel. And Jesus says at that point, you can choose now to work with me, or if you decide not to, it's going to take a few millennia for you to start working with me. And that's when Emmanuel came and started working with Chico. So it's awesome. But so then Jesus sent him home and said, yeah, your child will be healed, not because of you, but the faith of your wife. But my point is, why is it that Senator was crying and they couldn't talk, or that it wasn't on his knees? It's not because the power of Jesus made him submissive. This is our pride. We want to see that, a king or whatever. It's not that. It's not that. When you get close to a spirit that has so much love, that looks at you, and there's no judgment there, there's no patronizing, condescension. That spirit, for no reason at all, loves you. It's amplifying that God power. So it's everywhere around that spirit. It's involved in that love. And he walks and that light goes with him. So when we go under that light, those lies that we tell ourselves to protect against our own conscience, it flies away, it disappears, it falls off. So what brought him to his knees, was the weight of his own guilt. It was not Jesus' power making him kneel. He saw himself. He saw that his conscience was there, full force, naked, no protection, and he saw who he really was. And when that happens to all of us, more often than not, the only thing we do is cry. That's why when we are not psychologists or psychiatrists, and we finally reach a point where we figure out what's wrong with us, we cry. It's the lies. It's finally open, and that's the whole power of these prophets, or the spirits that they reach this level of love. They show us our own conscience. That's why you can't argue with them, because they only want to help. There's a spirit that's in front of you that they only want to help you. If they say, they point a wrong thing that they see in your thoughts, they're not saying that to judge you. They're saying so that they can open your own conscience, and they can start to change. They can help you change. So my point is, that's the whole exercise. It's to connect to our own conscience, to try to be a good person. There is one question in the Spirit's book. It's a section that is only one question. Question 918. where Kardec asks the spirits, how can you recognize a good person, a person that is really growing spiritually? And the spirits, they answer, the spirit proves its progress when all the actions of its corporeal life consist in practicing the law of God, and when it understands the spirit life beforehand. They didn't mention any religion. It's a person that it shows that they are good in here, not in the spiritual world. This is very important. In its corporeal life. Why it's in corporeal life? Because that's when that person can also reach the others. It's when we reach that point, when we can be good in here, when we are in this body, it's when we become useful, because we also start producing sort of light, and we start guiding, or at least inspiring the other incarnates that are around us. So that's the mission. So that's why you have to be good in here. That's the hardest part. Without remembering the spiritual world or all the details, it's just being you, trying to be the best you can. So that's the first thing. And understanding the spiritual life beforehand is when a person, even without knowing, it lives for the values that you can carry with you. This Friday, we had a Christmas party in my company, and all the people were there and we were having fun. And then I had the opportunity to talk, and I told them that we have a lot of projects, always busy and running. And I told them that the most important project that we have in this company is our friendship. It's us. As long as we are incarnated and we need to eat and pay bills, we're going to be doing projects. It's one after the other, and we're going to start forgetting details. But we're not going to forget each other. When we work together, we form a bond, and that's part of the question, the answer for question 918. The spirits, they wanted to, so Kardec took the question of the spirits and start breaking down some examples so that we can understand better. And one of them is, how do you treat the people who are subordinate to you? How do you treat when you get a lot of money? So the simplest answer is, do exactly the opposite of selfishness and pride. So if you have a lot of money, if you are entrusted with richness and wealth, see that as a deposit. God did not allow you to have that much money because you are special and better than everybody else. No, that's a deposit. You have to do something with it. You have now the power to help a lot of people. It's the same case of Zacchaeus. You guys remember when Zacchaeus, Jesus was coming, and he went to Zacchaeus' house, was a Republican, a rich guy, and he helped so many people, and Jesus looked at him, you are a true servant. So it's the same thing. And we see that in the end, it's just us and our own conscience, trying to understand who we really are and trying to see how to be a good person to our brothers, to our subordinates, to our family members, to whoever is with us. And he continues. This is Kardec describing who is the good person, how to recognize a good person. Truly moral individuals are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in its most complete purity. If they interrogate their conscience concerning their actions, they will ask if they have not violated that law, if they have not committed any wrong. So this is a person talking to themselves, to their own conscience. Have I violated any law? And what law? Have I done something that I myself see as wrong? Have I done something to others that I don't want others to do to me? The ones who live with me, my friends or my family members, or those who share a moment of the day with me, do they have any complaints against me? So this is the main thing. It's how we think ourselves, how do we treat people, how do we make friends. This is something that is very important. For some reason, I'm very. Uh, if you see the people around you, if you really try to see the people, the person with a heart, with feelings, it's much easier to make friends. And this is such an important thing because the more friends you have, the more friendship and love you spread, the more that is going to go back to you. It's going to return. People are going to think about you, and you're going to receive, oh, thank you very much. I need a towel. So that's why it's so important for us to try to question ourselves and try to see our own conscience. Because if we try to do that, we become more pleasant. We become more pleasant to people around us. And people feel that they can approach, they can talk to us. And we establish connections that when we go to the spiritual world, we will feel this love and we're going to be fed by this love. And when we reach this state, it doesn't matter what label we had before. It doesn't matter if we are Christians or Muslims or Hindus or Jewish. What matters for us is to be a good person, to learn to see people and to love people, to spread this love that we already have inside of us. We already have it. We just need to learn to stop lying to ourselves and just let it spread everywhere. Okay? That's what I wanted to bring to you guys. And I just want to close by saying that we are now in the end of another year inside of this immense clock that we live, that we call a planet. And it doesn't matter that we have another revolution around the sun. What matters is that we take this time to think, what did we do this year? How is our conscience? If we look back, how is our conscience? And to remember that we have a friend, we have a spirit that loves us very much. It's something that we cannot even comprehend because we don't know him personally. We've never invited him have a dinner party in our house. But he goes there regardless. He loves us, and he's always ready to help us. And he is. He's helping the whole planet to go to reach a better and more evolved level. In my opinion, this is a great thing. It's a very important thing for us to think, especially in this time of the year. Just to spare some moments, just to show our gratitude and just connect to this spirit that we identify by the name of Jesus Christ. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Hey, Rafael.
Oh, yeah, there's a question.
Yeah. Thank you for this great lecture. It's funny you brought the lecture in terms of about being a Christian. And you mentioned a lot of what we talked on our studies on Wednesday when I studied the gospel according to the Spiritism, that I always say is that being a Christian is not to believe in Christ, because that's what we think it is, right? The original, like, if you believe in Christ, you're a Christian. And it's not. Being a Christian is about our actions and how we behave. And I would say that there's people out there from non-Christian religions who are way more Christian than a lot of us who are Spiritists and think we are Christians, right? Because being Christian is really how we live our lives, and not just a label. Believing Christ does not automatically make us Christian in the real essence of what being a Christian is, right? Being Christian, that's what it is to understand the laws of love one another, love God above us, but love one another, is to distribute charity and love around us, right? And the lecture was just perfect about this. Do we have any questions or comments on the internet today? No? Any comments or questions here?
I just thought it was really nice, and it was the part that really got into me when you said that God is in us and we are in God. Because we grow up and we learn about, like, God always have the seed inside of us. So in my mind, it was always, he's here, and period, that ends. But when you said it's a whole thing, and for me it was like, oh, okay, it makes a lot more sense. And this exemplification of the water and the ice, it made me truly understand of, like, it's one single thing. And then if we change the form, well, you'll probably be like, it's not form, Raquel, but you become an ice, and then you melt and become water again. And for me, it was like, oh, okay, this is amazing.
Yeah, I had heard another comparison done that's also, someone says that God is the ocean, and each one of us is a drop of water inside the ocean. So we're all in God, but God is in us because we are inside Him, but at the same time, He's inside of us, right? And it was actually from a nun that I heard this analogy, and she says, and if you take one single drop out of the ocean, this ocean doesn't have the same size anymore, right? It's smaller. It doesn't have the same size. So every single drop is important. Every single drop is part of the ocean. There's not a single drop inside there that's less or more important than the other one, right? Any other comments? No? Okay, Rafael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a great lecture. It's a good way to end our year. So just want to say thank you very much for all of you who was with us over in the internet. We are returning on January 15 with our planning day, which is only presential, but if anybody wants to come, so anybody that's watching today over the internet, but on the 15th wants to come and help us to plan our year ahead, or 2023, please come over. It's open to everybody. And our lectures, it returns the weekend after, which is Sunday, 22nd. Will be our first lecture of 2023. Okay, but 15th, our planning day. Okay, thank you very much.